Oh boy, I got the bad news and the good news. So normally when we talk about good news and bad news, we would firstly talk about the bad news. Okay? So the bad news is that in the last 3 months, we have lost 3 million jobs. There's a survey that has just been conducted not long ago, about 5 days ago, that states that 3 million jobs have been lost. And out of those 3 million jobs that have been lost, the survey states that about 3 million, about 2 million of those people who lost their job are women. Okay, let me read this article here. Millions have lost their jobs during the lockdown, impacting social welfare and food poverty. One of the other article here, it's from the 16th of July, penned by Azara Karim. It states, as business were forced to close their doors during the lockdown, more than half have cut working hours for their employees or implemented layoffs. As business were forced to close their doors during the lockdown, more than half have cut working hours for their employees or implemented layoffs. A new study has revealed 3 million South Africans lost their job during the lockdown, with women accounting for 2 million of those. Martin Kingston of Business for South Africa said that the country implemented reforms to correct inequalities, less people would be made vulnerable by the pandemic. This is a global trend, with the UN saying women would be most impacted by the pandemic and 81% of the global workforce impacted. 3 million, that is how many people in South Africa have lost their jobs during the nationwide lockdown so far. According to a new study conducted by 30 social science researchers from 5 South African universities. The National Income Dynamics Coronavirus Rapid Mobile Survey studied 7,000 households to assess the impact of the lockdown on their employment as well as welfare. It is currently South Africa's largest household survey yet, detailing the disastrous impact of the lockdown. Now here are the 4 main findings of the studies. Listen to this. Millions have lost their job or their income streams between February and April 2020, with women feeling the brunt of the impact. Out of the 3 million people who had lost their jobs in this period, 2 million are women, as I've stated earlier. And number 2, existing inequalities in South Africa have been exacerbated, with job and income losses concentrated among already disadvantaged people, including black people, women, low wages earner, and manual laborers. Now, this group is the group that the EFF purports to be fighting for. Okay, people will be mostly in informal sectors, obviously professional workers as well, of whom almost everyone that I talk to would say that I'm getting 50% of my salary, and the other 50% hopefully will get payment from UIF, which never comes. So initially people like your petrol attendant, the security companies, people who normally recycle waste, remember they were told to go home. And also hawkers and folks who were selling in town, they were also told to go home. That is why when you were watching the news and most of the interviews that you would see a month on into lockdown, most people were just freely, without fear or any consequence, said that I've been told to stay at home, I'm earning nothing, and this kind of job is the job that I am doing in order for my family to survive. Okay, so I am the one who's providing food on the table in my house. So what I'm doing right now during this lockdown, I'm going out there trying to hustle in order to get a little bit of money, even though I'm not doing the same kind of trade or business that I'm doing right now. I'm just doing this temporarily until the close down of the country is stopped, so I could be able to do my job. Okay, so this is that group which was told to stay at home. The white monopoly capital would want us to go and work in their businesses and die, so that their businesses should then be alive. You know, it's one of those things where our government has failed in terms of prioritizing the people who are need to who are supposed to get the the companies that are supposed to get the funding. For instance, if you are Arshumeng Pty Ltd, and then the Department of Business Development will then look at it and say, oh, you fit the BE criterion. This company is in fact 100% black owned, and it hires 10 people, and then they would, based upon that, quickly give the funding to that company. And if it's Koos van der Merwe Pty Ltd, no, you don't qualify for BE, and right now you're running into our government and telling us that you want funding. You got to be in the back of the queue. But the problem is that Koos van der Merwe's companies, okay, the wide monopoly capital, and then it's Koos hires 1,000 black employees, okay. So the government's decisions of saving as many jobs as they can do right now is they will get a B qualified company that hires 10 people, save the company that hires 10 people, and then let the company that hires 1,000 black people by Koos van der Merwe to crash and burn, you know. So that will serve the white monopoly right. Whereas from that 1,000 people who have been fired, an average of about 4 uh, people in the house are supported by that one individual. So a 1,000 loss of jobs would then be times 5. It would be as if 5,000 people have lost their jobs. So this is one of those arguments that you're getting, and it's one of the EFF obviously's favorite arguments. White monopoly capital must go down. Don't revive it. You'd think the so-called white monopoly capital companies are worked by or doesn't support or doesn't give wages to the constituency that the EFF purport to be protecting. Like your EdCon, which a few weeks ago was about to shed thousands and thousands of employees, nationwide. And we just hope that if you look at Jed or Edgar's, you know who's going to be there as a cashier in the shop, the so-called right monopoly capital companies. They're employing thousands, tens and tens and thousands of black people. So economy and business, or when it comes to feed your family, the paper doesn't see color. You go to work and feed your family. So to build business, the other business that you don't want to continue thriving shouldn't have to crater down and go down. If it goes down, it goes down with everything. If you want to then encourage entrepreneurship, you must then come up with the best policies that would help emerging business people from underprivileged communities. Well, this should have been done from 1994 anyway, with 25 years down the line. And I remember a few years ago, when you look at the troubles that people have to go through in order to register their small businesses, it's hoops, crazy documentations, Whereas it's supposed to be easy for you to just go online, register your company, look if the name exists. If the name that you want to choose for your company is not there, you choose it, you register it, you get a text number, and then from that, you're given a leeway, maybe for a certain number of years, until your company is then be able to make profit, for you to be able to then start paying your tax. But it's like when you register for a company, it's already, the government is already geared up to collect from you, whether your business is going to survive or not. You know what I mean? The environment is not healthy and friendly, and not supported to be able to do their work. Going to the excerpt here, point number 3, it says, this loss of income has had a profound impact on food poverty, with half of those surveyed reporting that they had run out of money to buy food in April. Imagine that. Point number 4, children have also impacted by this, with 15% of people saying their child had gone hungry in the last 7 days during the survey. 7% said their child went hungry almost every day or every day. That's a lot of number. That's a lot of number. And speaking of the kids, remember during lockdown, our government obviously stopped their schools feeding schemes to kids. As a result of lockdown, they were then had to be taken to court in order for them to be forced to feed the kids. Remember, most of the kids, they rely on the nutrition. They rely on the schools feeding schemes in order for them to assist them. So the court now had ruled that the Department of Education must start now rolling out the feeding schemes again, after that had been stopped. But also, this is going to be a bit complicated now in terms of the logistics of how the feeding scheme is going to work. Is it going to be where the kids who normally relies on their breakfast and lunch at school to now go to school, queue up, and have their food being delivered to them or given to them to eat? Because we are in an uncharted territory. The kids, different grades, are supposed to go to school at different times. Okay, so you can imagine if that grade, say grade 1 to 3, is at home, and then the other grades are going to school, how are the kids, the grade 1, 2, and 3, going to be fed while they're at home? So the government must also find a mechanism, or maybe a central places where then kids would go and then being fed there in order for them to survive. Remember, there's been cases now of malnutrition of kids being admitted at hospitals right now. And as we speak right now, the government doesn't have a comprehensive way of taking their kids back to our kids back to learning. The education teachers unions right now as we speak are saying that the kids shouldn't be going to school right now. They should halt doing that and start going back in August, and then after that the smaller grades should then go. So we'll find out as to what's really going to be happening right about now. And then coming to the great news. This good news, obviously, it's good news for the commander-in-chief of the economic freedom fighters, Julius Malema. Why is it good news for him? Headline from Sunday World Business section: Johann Rupert's Richmond takes 47% COVID-19 hit by Kabelo Khumalo. This article is dated 16th July 2020. So it says, Compagnie Financière Richemont SA, behind luxury brands such as Cartier, Chloe, and Page, said today sales for the quarter ended June fell 47% to about 1.99 billion euros due to the coronavirus pandemic. The Johann Rupert controlled luxury brand group, in a statement, said sales fell significantly across all regions except China, which recorded a strong increase. The firm's sales increased by 68% in China, driven by increased online and offline retail spend and the contribution of the recently opened Cartier flagship store on Tmall Luxury Pavilion. The company said its overall performance was unprecedented levels of disruption and widespread temporary closure of internal franchise or multi-brand retail partner stores. So the article goes on and on and on and on. Again, the so-called white monopoly capital, they hire the constituency of which the EFF purport to be fighting for. So, and they're called economic freedom fighters. So I expect if you are an EFF supporter or a member and you're working at a corporate company, okay, I'm sure when you fill up your CV and sending your applications, you don't go through like check. Let's see, is this the one monopoly capital? Well, if you do that, good luck to you in this day and age where there's hardships for people to be able to get jobs. You understand that people like Rupert got shares in, almost, your cousin or anyone that you related to, they probably are working for a company that's been controlled by Rupert. Okay. So this so-called good news of seeing those companies go down, it's bad news for your constituency, who would then not be able to have bread on the table to feed their family. Okay? So this is just economics 101. But then again, politicians are politicians. Most politicians, what they do is talk. They never work a day in their life. They don't know what it is to start a business from scratch. Most of them to get slices. They've got name recognition, brand, in terms of what number of influence they have in politics. Then they will have their slice of whatever percentages of companies that have been held. Tenders comes out now for coronavirus, be it PPEs and so forth. Open up a company, and then you get a tender and you get hundreds and hundreds of millions, and say you are a business person, or else you're not a business person. So that's what we see these days. So I hope that everybody's jobs are still safe, and we just hope that the economy will be opened up, obviously in a responsible way, keeping up with the guidelines of us to be safe as we continue going on in terms of running the country, and life going on. So I thank you for watching the Mamuji show, and I'm out of here.